A little while ago, I was sent an AGO film processor, which is something that you might have seen on Instagram and starting to pop up on YouTube videos as people are getting them and trying them out. It was a Kickstarter project about a year ago that hit its goal, and now I am going to show one off. The AGO processor is an automated film processing tool which attaches to the top of a standard Patterson film developing tank. It allows you to select a specific developing process and then will automatically agitate the reels inside of the tank while also monitoring the chemical temperature using its built-in thermometer. It will even compensate for changing chemistry temperatures by adjusting the developing times automatically. It's important to note though that the processor is not a heater. It can only adjust the times within a certain range of changing temperature, but it cannot help to maintain the temperature. The unit can be used either with the Patterson tank standing up or with the Patterson tank on its side, allowing you to develop your film using less chemistry than a Patterson tank normally uses. For example, a 2-reel tank can be used with only 350 milliliters of chemistry, where it would normally require closer to 600 milliliters. The AGO processor requires a modified funnel for the Patterson tank where 3 holes are drilled into it for use with the tank on its side. The kit I received had one of these ready to go, but there's also a template if you want to drill holes in a regular funnel for use with the AGO. It comes programmed with a variety of processes from major chemical kits such as Cinestill, Flickfilm, and Arista, as well as having the ability to input custom processes using Wi-Fi connectivity. It also runs off of a built-in battery charged through USB-C. This was sent to me free of charge, by the way. I did not purchase this with my own money. I also received one of these 4x5 holders for a Patterson tank because the AGO processor can be used for anything that you can put into a pretty standard developing tank. Now, before I dive into my experience and review of using the AGO processor, recording some of this video went a little off the rails for me. I wanted to really put this thing to the test and decided I would develop some slide film using E6 chemistry. And my friend Alex and I walked around to Hyde Park in Toronto and shot some Velvia and Ektachrome on a gorgeous fall day, which I thought would yield some great slides, but I was wrong. Alex shot some 1989 tungsten Ektachrome 160, which I really should have put in its own tank because I'm really confident that this old film botched my chemistry real bad in my first use of the processor. So I used the processor a couple times. I kind of detailed all my experiences with it, the issues that I found, the things that I liked and didn't. There are issues that are completely my own, and I understand that, so here you go. This is the AGO film processor, and I'm going to use it to develop slide film. Joining me in the darkroom is my friend and coworker, Robin.
Yeah, see? Great. That's Thanks. Good.
I have to add the unicolor time to it. This is how I have to do it. Okay, this part could be a little more streamlined. Then I open it. Oh my God, do we have to punch this in? How long?
120.
120. Okay. For my E6 developing, I was using a unicolor kit, which isn't programmed into the processor, at least not at the moment. It's similar to the Arista E6 kit, but the temperatures are a few degrees different. So I decided I would try to create a custom process. And this is where I hit my first snag. Programming a custom developer process was so incredibly annoying, and it just wasn't working for me. Originally, the interface involved having to input your developing parameters using proper formatting into a text document that looked like this, and then upload that to the processor over Wi-Fi. No matter what I did, it just wouldn't accept the custom one. It just wouldn't show up in the menu of the processor. This does get resolved with a firmware update that I do later in this video though, so more on that later. This is crazy. So I couldn't get the custom thing to work, but I'm just gonna go off of the Arista E6 kit. You can put this base on it, and then it can stand up this way. I'm having the hardest time with this product. So we can pour it in through like the chutes here. This is great. I don't have to do anything.
You're just watching it.
You just watch it.
Oh, wow. That's it?
It says 105 degrees Fahrenheit right now. So it's changing the time by 1 minute and 16 seconds.
Whoa.
Yeah. Well, gross. It's getting gross in there. You can see the chemistry sitting on top.
Oh, ew. Ruining my chemistry. I was hoping I didn't have to mix more for tomorrow. Ew. That's weird.
The big issue I did encounter with the AGO processor was that it leaked chemistry quite a bit. I put a lot of force into connecting the unit to the top of the tank, but I had such an issue with the chemistry leaking. And when I'm working with pretty expensive E6 color chemistry, this isn't something that I was very happy with at all. Oh, fuck. Yeah, fuck. You're working way harder than I am during this video. You mixed all the chemistry.
It's all the chemistry. I clean.
I think maybe like the rinse overflowed because I had moved it a little bit, I guess.
I saw it like kind of coming apart.
Yeah, but it's still very firmly on there. So turn the water to hot.
Okay.
On the hose, and I'll just put the hose in. Oh shit, it's leaking out.
Blicks?
Yeah.
Oh God.
God damn it.
Why? Yeah.
Yeah, it's, see?
Hold on.
All right, oh, it's done. I was concerned initially that I was maybe overfilling the tank because I didn't see any like clear instruction or marking of where the chemistry fills to, but I double checked this in my second attempt with precisely measuring everything out, and I was fine. The chemical issues and results that I had on that first round are on me, but the issues that I had with putting in a custom process and how much chemistry was leaking out of that tank didn't really make me want to use the processor again. The 35 is a disaster. I did a second round of developing just for the hell of it, still with that bad chemistry anyways, using some 4x5 sheets that I had shot. Okay, so it's tight against there, seal. It was a little bit smoother, but I still had chemistry leak on me a couple of times.
Is it swooping? That's developer.
That's developer?
Yeah.
All right, a little bit of developer puddle there.
Don't do that at home.
Yeah.
Smell developer.
Ah, God damn it. It leaked out.
You literally crushed like over and over.
Leaked a little bit of Blix again. And a little bit of a puddle there. Okay, great. Come on. The results of that side film are bad, and I will not focus on it. We are really confident that it was probably that very expired old E6 film. Robin mixed that chemistry herself. It's a chemical kit that she's very familiar with. She has used the Unicolor a lot to develop a lot of Super 8 and 16mm Ektachrome herself. Really
wow. I mean, yeah, totally.
They're not right.
I look like someone's mom. Like they found it at the bottom of the cabinet. It looks so cool. With that? Yeah. It's a vintage retro.
Okay, great. The processor did deserve a second chance though, in order to make a proper review video of this thing. So I did a firmware update and gave it another shot. The new firmware update completely overhauled the Wi-Fi interface for making a custom process, which is awesome. Looks way better, is way easier to figure out. I still had issues. The Unicolor chemistry kit instructions say to develop with a higher temperature than the Arista E6 kit, and when I tried to create a custom process, it just wasn't allowing me to have the processor monitor the temperature, which is one of the main selling points of this thing. You should be able to set a temperature range to monitor, and then the processor will adjust the time, but this wasn't working or showing up properly when I added it to the processor. I spent probably half an hour trying to do this and had to kind of trick it into doing the right thing. I basically told it to pretend all my Unicolor E6 chemicals were C41 Blix because that was the right temperature, but even that gave me some issues before I finally got something that would work. It was so frustrating, and I just don't know why it wouldn't work. We're back in the darkroom. Robin and I are gonna mix fresh Unicolor chemistry. I have an Ektachrome. This is a tank that I haven't used before. It's a new one. At the very bottom, it should be very tight against the lid, and sometimes it can kind of pop off or start to tilt back. See, now there's like a little bit of a lid or a little bit of a break there in the seal. 350 milliliters is all that the processor's manual says it needs to run a 2-reel tank. You know what is smart about this design though is that it is not a touchscreen, it has physical buttons. So if you're using like gloves or your hands are like kind of gooey or whatever, then you don't have to try to fiddle with a touchscreen. Okay, so it's 2 minutes. Here we go. And lift it up. Hopefully there's no water underneath it. And dump this out and then do the first evaporator. Okay, great. Green.
Normal.
Normal. Round 2 developing was way less messy with no chemical leakage, which was amazing. But the processor, for whatever reason during this round, didn't compensate the first developer time as the temperature of that chemical dropped quite a bit. Like when we did it before, at least when I was just trying to run it off of the Arista kit, then it was like adding a bit of dev time. It should have been doing this. Maybe it wasn't doing this because I told it to treat it like C41 Blix, but it does start doing it for the color developer and the Blix, even though these are treated in the custom process as C41 Blix as well. So I don't know why it chose to compensate those, but not compensate the first one.
That's the color I want.
100 Fahrenheit, hopefully is what it should be based on the thermometer. It's not compensating the time. Oh, it is now. Plus 28 seconds. So it compensated the color developer, but it didn't do any compensation on the first developer. So it added 45 seconds onto that depth time. And it dropped about 2 degrees during that.
Almost done.
Alright, and this, based on our thing, is running at just a little warm, just over 100, so sure. Take the temperature well on the Blix. Alright, this one looks good. Great. This has been Noah, back to Noah in the studio. The AGO processor is a cool idea that so far I have just found kind of awkward and frustrating to use, and instead wish that I was just developing normally without it. The things that I do like though are that it is solidly made, the buttons and everything are very responsive, it charges through USB-C and has a pretty good battery life, at least from so far what I can tell. And the fact that you can use it with the Patterson tank on its side and save a pretty decent amount of chemistry while you're using it is really, really appealing. And when I had good results on my second attempt, they were genuinely good results. The agitation and running it on its side resulted in good looking, consistent images for the whole roll. On my second attempt, I definitely put my entire body weight into attaching that thing to the Patterson tank and had no chemistry leaks. So it is important to really do your best to make that seal, but it might come loose without you realizing it, especially if you're moving the tank a few times during your processing to pour chemistry out. Like in my first run, the Blix was fine for almost the entire time in the tank and then started randomly leaking out right near the end. The manual says to use your upper body weight when you're attaching the processor to the tank, and I really thought I did the first couple of times, even though I had leaks, so I guess I just underestimated how much effort you really have to use when you're attaching this thing. I think really what it is that I find it the most awkward for using when you're developing color. If you want to use the AGO on its side, then you can't also submerge it in water, and the AGO isn't a heater, and so if your temperature changes too drastically, then the processor can't do the time compensation for it, and then eventually it will just say temperature out of range. With color processes, you're also going to be doing more rinses and chemical exchanges, which means moving that tank back and forth a lot more, which means that maybe you're going to start to nudge it or separate it enough that you might again, have leaks without even realizing that that's going to happen. The developing and chemistry issues that I had on the first round of developing are my own issues for sure, but the awkward, frustrating time I had with being able to get a custom process to work, the fact that on the first developer that one time it didn't even do its compensation temperature adjustment thing, and the fact that it leaked chemistry a few times, combined with its rather high price tag, makes this something that I don't really recommend at the moment. Speaking of the price tag, the AGO costs 439 euros. This is close to $650 Canadian for me, or $460 American. If I look at it for myself, it's pretty costly, and I don't think it's worth it. I live in Toronto, so I have access to quite a few different Photolab options. And I don't find myself doing a ton of consistent developing, especially for color. I develop more black and white, and I don't think that you need a tool like this if you're only developing a bit of black and white, but I found it a bit too frustrating with color to want to use it like a ton for that. So I guess you would have to be shooting and developing pretty consistently, maybe a variety of different chemical kits and processes in order to justify this. But even that, some people might still find it a little bit of a hindrance. But if it's working well, and it does have the ability to work well, even though it's a little weird and frustrating, there is the big factor of saving chemistry when running that tank on its side. And that might be kind of like a significant enough thing to draw some people into buying it. It also has like a 14-day trial free return period at the moment, which I think is probably a very smart thing. I think it just needs some improvements, and I don't know if there's gonna be like another iteration of this with some different design tweaks and things, but at least I'm pretty confident that the firmware updates will continue to kind of roll out and make that interface and like custom workflow easier, especially because there does seem to be a pretty good community around people who are supporting this and working on it. And I am sure that I will use it again for something. It is an interesting tool and it has a lot of promise, but it is a little bit hard to get past that really, really kind of frustrating and annoying first impression, and that might put some people off from even trying it. Thank you so much for checking this out. Thank you especially to Vintage Visual for sending me along one of the AGO processors. You can find information down in the description below for where to buy the processor, also ways to help support the channel, Analog Resurgence itself. And as always, thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Coworker. With my friend.
I can't believe I got demoted from friend to coworker. What the hell?
Coworker.